For over 50 years, the world has been enthralled by strange tales of alien encounters.
He saw a spaceship.
Some believe that extraterrestrial visitors are fact, not fiction. And they claim that a secret government conspiracy is hiding this truth from the public.
We have the government lying really from day one.
The government knows more than they're letting on.
In Conspiracies: The Alien Cover-Up, we investigate Britain's most mysterious UFO sightings. Did the US military attempt to cover up a UFO encounter on UK soil?
It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way.
Anybody that was a witness was told to treat it as top secret.
Did aliens attack a man in a Scottish forest?
The marks that you're looking at could have been made by something not of this world.
Have British scientists really made contact with an alien civilization?
The Rosetta mission is a military reconnaissance mission. The Comet has what seem to be structures on it that look intelligently made.
And did the UK government destroy irrefutable UFO evidence?
The best way to kill the story is to make sure no one has the picture.
Do you believe in flying saucers?
For over 70 years, we've been gripped by eyewitness accounts of strange sightings and close encounters with what are claimed to be spaceships and extraterrestrials from beyond our world.
He was able to move sideways, do manoeuvres that no aircraft in this country could do them sort of manoeuvres.
The object was likened unto a cross.
I believe the UFO phenomena and the crop circles are totally connected.
But could we really be experiencing actual contact with beings from other planets?
Astronomers and scientists who specialize in this area do believe that, statistically speaking, there must be not just life elsewhere in the universe, but intelligent life.
For some, the evidence gathered from sightings around the globe points to only one conclusion: extraterrestrials have arrived.
No question in my mind, alien visitors are monitoring the whole darn planet.
Stanton Friedman has investigated UFO encounters for over 50 years. He not only believes that aliens have visited Earth, but he claims that our governments have secretly conspired to cover up this truth.
There's a whole secret world out there, top secret world. The need to know is what's crucial here. And very few people have a need to know for the most classified stuff.
Friedman and others claim that behind our backs, top secret sections of the military are secretly studying UFOs to learn from their advanced alien technologies.
They make wonderful weapons delivery and defense systems. Extraordinary maneuverability, the ability to hover, to move straight up, straight down, right angle turns, all this. Boy, what a great bomber that would make.
But despite this alleged secrecy, there have been numerous documented incidents of alien encounters. One of the most famous, cited by the conspiracy theorists, occurred right here in the UK.
It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal.
Anybody that was a witness was told to treat it as top secret.
(1980) was the height of the Cold War. The US Air Force controlled many airfields in the UK, including two on the edge of Suffolk's Rendlesham Forest. And it was here that it's claimed that the UK's biggest military cover-up of an alien encounter occurred. It was the night of the 26th of December, 1980. At 3 a.m., base security at Woodbridge Air Force Base saw a strange light in the sky, falling towards Rendlesham Forest. The alarm was raised. 26-year-old Sergeant Jim Penniston led the team sent out to investigate what they thought was a crashed aircraft. What he believes he discovered changed his life forever.
I went in one person and left another. It went against everything I believed in. And what could be true, what could be possible.
The team moved towards a faint light they believed was the crash site.
As we entered the tree line, there was a flashlight. I mean, a huge flashlight. It was bright bluish white.
As the light faded, Sergeant Penniston claims he saw something out of this world. Many people claim that our governments are conspiring to cover up the truth about UFO encounters. One of the most incredible sightings, it's claimed they suppressed, occurred right here in the UK, when Sergeant Jim Penniston of the US Air Force was sent to investigate strange lights in Rendlesham Forest.
I wasn't sure what I was seeing. I had my mind set that it was an aircraft crash, and there was no crash. I could start seeing a structured craft, and it was a triangular craft that was sitting in the forest floor, and it looked like black glass. When I pushed it, it was solid. It was warm. There was some type of markings on it. There was glyphs on it that were something I'd never seen before. There was another flash of light coming out of it, and then it started to lift off the forest floor, move a little bit through these trees. It momentarily hovered there, did a slight turn, and was gone in a blink of an eye. And I looked, it had moved another 100 yards away. We pursued it, we could never quite catch up with it.
Giving up the chase, the soldiers returned to base. Fearing ridicule, Penniston didn't disclose his close encounter, reporting only that he saw unidentified lights. But rumors of his team's UFO sighting began to circulate around the base. And 2 nights later, the lights were seen again. This time, a larger force was sent to investigate, led by Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Holt. At the site of Penniston's encounter, Holt's team recorded strange indentations in the ground and detected abnormal radiation readings. Then, they too saw the lights. Colonel Holt recorded everything that happened.
Straight ahead, in between, there it is again. We see strange strobe-like flashes to the rather sporadic, but there's definitely something, some kind of phenomenon. We're seeing strange lights in the sky. There it is. Hey, I see it too. What is it? We don't know, sir. There's something very, very strange. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Now we're observing what appears to be a beam coming down to the ground. This is unreal.
When the lights finally disappeared, Holt returned to base a believer. He sent an internal memo up the chain of command, documenting his encounter.
I have a lieutenant colonel, deputy base commander, who now acknowledges and validates the first night. It's no longer just me telling the story. He experienced something that he couldn't explain either.
After Colonel Holt reported his sighting, Penniston was ordered to give a detailed description of his own close encounter to government inspectors. But their response was unexpected. According to Penniston, they gave him a cover story and ordered him to suppress the truth.
I said, it's not accurate. And they said, this is an open investigation by the Office of Special Investigation. You are required to go ahead and use this as the cover story to anybody that asks about this.
At this point, Sergeant Penniston claims the interrogation took a sinister turn. Agents drugged him to make him forget the whole incident, explaining why he's been silent about his encounter for years.
I can understand their need for that. I can understand it. I don't agree with it, the methods. Sodium pentothal was used, and you know, it was really bad. I mean, bad.
Sergeant Penniston says that it was years before he regained the memories of his close encounter. Both he and Colonel Holt claim the Rendlesham incident is a huge US government cover-up of a UFO encounter.
Colonel Holt, he says that these things were extraterrestrial, that the government knows about it, and that there's some super secret organisation that's keeping tabs of all this stuff, and that the British and American governments are both involved in covering it up.
But why did UFOs choose to land in Rendlesham Forest? And why would the military cover it up? Conspiracists claim that it's all about nuclear weapons. They say that there is no coincidence that UFO sightings had shot up after we entered the nuclear era. From an alien perspective, mankind had come of age.
At the end of World War II, it was perfectly clear that soon these idiot Earthlings would be able to go out there and bother them with nuclear technology.
It's claimed that in the 1980s, strategic nuclear weapons were secretly housed at US bases in Britain, including the 2 military bases on the edge of Rendlesham Forest, but it's never been confirmed.
The twin bases of Bentwaters and Woodbridge were 2 of the most strategically important military establishments in the entire NATO military alliance. I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons at Bentwaters or Woodbridge.
Believers claim that the UFO had come to spy on these munitions. In his account, Colonel Holt states that the UFO shone a beam onto the hangar where the nukes were allegedly stored.
When you've got nuclear weapons, I would think aliens would want to know what was going on here.
The conspiracy theorists point to the fact that the US military kept the Rendlesham Forest incident under wraps for over 2 years. The story of the UFO encounter only hit the headlines in 1983, when Colonel Holt's official memo became the subject of a Freedom of Information request, and the military was forced to release it. But skeptics claim that the Rendlesham incident was no close encounter. They say there is a simple explanation for the strange lights. A lighthouse, specifically Orford Ness Lighthouse, on the coast a few miles from the forest.
If you're standing in Rendlesham Forest in the right position, you can actually see the lighthouse sticking out. I've seen it. It's perfectly visible from where Colonel Holt was at the time he was making the recording.
The lighthouse flashes every 5 seconds, a fact skeptics say proves there was no UFO.
You play Colonel Holt's recording and you can hear him and you can actually time it against the flashes. There it goes again. Now, he didn't describe in his tape recording seeing a UFO and a lighthouse. He described seeing a UFO. He doesn't mention the lighthouse at any point in that recording. So him saying years later he couldn't possibly have got the 2 mixed up, I'm sorry, does not cut any ice with me.
Oh, if they want to say it's a lighthouse, they can. I don't care. It was a structured craft. It was on the ground. That is what they're trying to hide.
The skeptics also doubt both Penniston's account of his close encounter with the craft and the drug-fueled cover-up, because these key revelations were only reported by Penniston years after the event.
None of that was mentioned in 1981. The right way of looking at it is to say, those people making those claims, let's see your evidence. Where is your evidence? There isn't any, just stories. And those stories become bigger and bigger and bigger and more elaborate every year.
Skeptics believe there was another reason for the military covering up the alleged encounter. If nuclear weapons were secretly kept at the bases, the authorities would have been keen to hush up any incident that cast doubt on the security and integrity of the base defenses.
The idea that the government is covering up something it's embarrassed about is a lot less interesting than it's covering up something that it's frightened about. But the former, of course, is much more likely to be the case.
Whether or not the US military were attempting to hide important secrets remains unknown to this day. But we now know for a fact that for decades, on both sides of the Atlantic, the military had been secretly studying UFOs. By the early 1950s, both the US and UK militaries had set up top-secret task forces to investigate the post-war boom in sightings of unidentified flying objects. Nick Pope once worked at the heart of the Ministry of Defence's secretive UFO project.
The central purpose of the UFO project was to ascertain whether or not any of these sightings constituted a threat to the defence of the UK. In other words, we looked at this strictly as a defence and national security issue.
The British and US government's fear was that UFOs were in fact enemy Soviet aircraft.
Concerns about particularly what reconnaissance and bomber aircraft the Soviet Union possessed was really a huge question. So these sightings of UFOs, people were thinking maybe the Soviets have made a quantum leap.
The MOD's UFO project spent decades investigating thousands of reported sightings. And in 2009, their files were finally declassified. The official line? They never found any evidence of extraterrestrials. But some claim the truth is very different, and that some sightings were never explained.
Around 80% of the sightings could be explained satisfactorily as misidentifications. Another 15%, really there was insufficient data to come to a firm conclusion, leaving 5% unknown.
Many ufologists claim that the truth about this 5% has been known for decades, and that the highest levels of the UK military are covering up alien contact.
I don't believe for a minute that England has released all of their files. That's the kicker here, the difference between secret and top secret, for example.
I do believe that maybe the government knows more than they're letting on. That's with UFO sightings in Britain as a whole. I do believe they've got a lot more to answer for.
Malcolm Robinson has been investigating UFO sightings for over 30 years. He believes that the absence from the MOD records of certain known UFO encounters points to a continuing conspiracy. One such encounter occurred in 1979 in Dechmont Woods, near the town of Livingston in Scotland, when forestry worker Robert Taylor claimed to have been assaulted by extraterrestrials in broad daylight.
It was on the morning of November 9th, 1979, that Robert Taylor was walking down this forestry path behind me. And as he walked down this path, he came to this clearing. And as he stood there, he was absolutely gobsmacked by what he saw.
According to his later testimony, hovering above the clearing was a UFO.
He was absolutely transfixed. He's never seen anything like this before. He was absolutely astonished. And he noticed that parts of the object dematerialised and solidified again. And just then, what resembled 2 Second World War sea mines descended from beneath this object and started rolling across the grass towards him. They stopped and they projected these rod-like projections towards both of his hips and pulled him. And at that point, he lost consciousness.
In November 1979, when 61-year-old Robert Taylor was walking through woodlands near Livingston in central Scotland, the last thing he expected to see was a UFO. Whatever he encountered, he claimed he was attacked by it and left unconscious. According to Taylor's testimony, when he came to, the UFO was nowhere to be seen. But he claimed the air was full of a choking gas. In a daze, Taylor stumbled back to his house and called the police. When they arrived, they discovered the forestry worker battered and bruised with torn clothing.
It's gone down in history, this case, as being the only example of a police investigation into a suspicious attack by a UFO on an individual.
Robert Taylor was the only witness to the events he described. But his account was judged to be reliable.
Everybody who's investigated the case says Bob Taylor himself was a very credible witness. He didn't try to make money out of the case. He was very phlegmatic about it and didn't seem particularly perturbed or excited about it. And he was not somebody who was known for making up stories or making incredible claims.
He believed, and he always to his dying day, he believed that he saw a spaceship, for want of a better word. In fact, that's the words he used. He saw a spaceship.
Unlike many UFO sightings, Taylor's eyewitness statement was supported by physical evidence. When the police visited the clearing where Taylor claimed he was attacked, they found the ground scarred with strange indentations.
On examining the area, I found 2 trag marks in approximately 40 holes in the ground. Since then, I've photographed the holes. You can actually see the tread marks which correspond to the marks here.
This is the area in question where Robert Taylor said he saw that this fantastic object. This area here, we have over 40 holes in the grass. And in the middle of this sloping field at the time were these track-like marks.
Really baffling stuff, because there was no tracks actually running to the clearing or running away from it.
With the testimony of Robert Taylor, with these spiky balls that descended from beneath this object and rolled across the grass, perhaps it was those devices may have made these indentations, these marks in the grass.
The police photographs and sketches are not the only evidence that remains from the incident.
What I'm holding here is the actual trousers that Robert Taylor wore on that eventful morning, and they clearly show the rips on the trousers here. We have quite a substantial rip on the right leg of the trouser, and also if we turn the trousers round to this side, on the left leg, we have quite a more substantial tear, as we can see here. Now, the testimony was that these rips were made by these sea mine devices. It fell from beneath the object that Robert Taylor saw on that eventful morning. The marks that you're looking at could have been made by something not of this world.
They found evidence that something had attached itself to his trousers, almost like having almost tried to lift him up and made rips in the side of the trousers, and these were found in the forensic lab.
But ultimately, despite all the eyewitness and physical evidence, the police investigation ground to a halt. And when the government's UFO files were finally released in 2009, there was no file on Robert Taylor's encounter. For Malcolm Robinson, this is evidence of a deliberate cover-up of what really happened in Dechmont Woods.
It's my belief that the government were aware of this case, that it was on their radar, it was on their agenda. It's my contention that they undertook their own investigation. This was major. I believe that we are dealing with a very real, a very tangible alien presence here on planet Earth. It sounds fantastic, but just because something sounds and looks ridiculous, we shouldn't laugh at it.
Robert Taylor's account goes down as one of the most mysterious British UFO sightings ever. But skeptics believe there is a more mundane explanation for his alleged encounter.
My personal experience of these things is that in almost all cases, one tends to find that it's either a hoax or something's happened in somebody's brain.
The theory is that in the forest that day, Robert Taylor may have experienced some kind of epileptic seizure.
One of the common symptoms of an epileptic attack is people seeing a ball of light rushing towards them, or suddenly losing consciousness. And the smell that Robert Taylor said he smelled, this horrible choking smell, that's the sort of thing you would expect from somebody having a seizure.
But if Robert's UFO experience could have been a seizure, there is still no explanation for the marks in the clearing or the rips in his trousers. The police case remains open and unsolved, and the rumors of conspiracy continue. The Robert Taylor and Rendlesham incidents are not the only encounters conspiracy theorists claim the government is covering up. Many believe one particular account recorded in the UK UFO files points to the willful destruction of the best evidence ever produced of a UFO over Britain.
The best way to kill the story is to make sure no one has the picture.
According to the UFO files, in August 1990, two hikers were walking in the Scottish Highlands, close to Calvine, north of Pitlochry. Suddenly, they saw something incredible. It was a chance for the picture of a lifetime. The hikers immediately contacted journalists from the Scottish Daily Record newspaper. After viewing their photos, the journalists chose to share both pictures and negatives with the Ministry of Defence. The UFO desk files say that the images were then analysed by the best team in the business.
The Defence Intelligence Staff sent these images to JARIC, that's the Joint Air Reconnaissance and Intelligence Centre. Now this is the UK's military centre of expertise when it comes to imagery analysis.
They identified a small jet in the background, but the large diamond-shaped craft in the foreground defied classification.
These intelligence personnel come to the conclusion that these photographs are real, it's a solid craft, and no one has the faintest idea what it is.
At the time, Nick Pope was a junior member of the UFO team. He remembers the response of the MOD's top UFO expert.
He started gesticulating and he said, well, we know it's not the Americans, and he pointed his finger that way, and he flipped it the other way and he said, it's not the Russians. And he said, and that only leaves, and he did that. And my boss looked at his finger and looked up at the ceiling, and we all just looked at each other and nothing further was said. I mean, there were certainly people in the MOD who were prepared to think the unthinkable. and say, yeah, maybe, just maybe, it could be extraterrestrial.
Behind Nick's UFO project desk, the Calvine picture had pride of place.
People would come into our section, they would see this thing and say, what the heck is that? And we'd tell the story. It's the best UFO photo we ever received.
Then, suddenly, things changed. According to Nick Pope, an internal cover-up began.
One day, my head of division came in and he removed it. I don't know whether it was sent somewhere else for safekeeping or someone else on his behalf put it through the shredder, but whatever happened, when the MOD opened its UFO files, questions were asked about that picture, and the answer was, well, we don't know, it's gone.
Outside evidence of the photograph's existence had also disappeared. The Daily Record never published the pictures, and now their journalists claim no knowledge of the story.
Now, to me, if you've been given a photograph like that, what a fantastic scoop. I just thought, why was it that the Scottish Daily Record didn't publish these photographs? And I spoke to all the chief reporters who were around at that time. They knew all the people who were there back to 1990. None of them could remember the story at all.
I can only assume intelligence specialists in the Ministry of Defence convinced the paper not to run this, maybe through use of a D-notice, but maybe through some other means, and for whatever reason, the paper complied with this request and the story was dropped.
Without the journalists, the hikers could not be traced, and they have never come forward. All that now survives in the UFO desk's Calvine image file are a couple of crude line drawings. The original photograph has disappeared without trace. And many believe this points to a cover-up.
Well, if it was an extraterrestrial craft, and it's a big story for the governments, not only of the UK, but any government, to openly put their hand up and admit that we are dealing with a recognisable alien technology presence here surrounding planet Earth.
In this sort of situation, it really is the case that a picture paints 1,000 words. You know, the best way to kill the story is to make sure no one has the picture.
But could there be another explanation for a government conspiracy? One that does not involve aliens?
Well, I think this is one of those rare occasions where there actually is a conspiracy of sort, though maybe it's not quite the conspiracy that people think it is.
The truth is that during the Cold War, the US military had many secrets to hide, including the stealth and spy aircraft technology that had led to the F-117 fighter and B-2 bomber. Rumors that the Americans were working on an even more advanced spy plane had circulated in the months leading up to the Calvine incident.
A lot of stuff on TV and radio about this new hypersonic aircraft that the Americans were supposed to be testing, codenamed Aurora, which was supposed to be diamond-shaped, and it was supposed to be the next generation of stealth aircraft after the F-117 and the B-2 bomber.
Skeptics believe that the head of the British UFO desk, although not cleared to know about Aurora, would have had the incentive to protect an American military secret.
They'd not got any confirmation that this was flying in British airspace, but they suspected it might be. So to them, this was potentially, you know, a picture of a top-secret aircraft. So you can imagine there would be a lot of sort of, you know, this is not something we want to say much about.
The desire to protect technological secrets could explain why all traces of the Calvine photograph were removed.
The inherent secrecy of the government and the military has led to a situation where people think we do have a spaceship hidden in an Air Force hangar somewhere. If we did have a spaceship hidden, I'm afraid they didn't tell me.
But UFO believers remain unconvinced. And they claim government cover-ups now extend into space. They allege that a recent space probe is just a cover for a more sinister mission to rendezvous with aliens.
It was pretty obvious straight away that there were structures on there, and there was even a UFO hovering just above the surface, about the size of a family car.
With advances in robotic technology, space exploration has entered a new era. Unmanned probes are now at the forefront of our exploration of the solar system. But some believe that our forays into space have a more sinister purpose. The latest space mission to fall under the conspiracy spotlight is the European Space Agency's Rosetta mission.
2014 leaves one name written in space: Rosetta.
A scientific experiment, 20 years in the making, and so far it's worked perfectly.
The European Space Agency portrays the Rosetta mission as pure science. A 10-year voyage across millions of miles of space to survey the distant comet 67P.
Rosetta's images and measurements are helping scientists to learn more about the role of comets in the evolution of the solar system.
But some believe this mission is a smokescreen. Joe White runs the UFO Spotters web channel, Art Alien. In August 2014, he received a mysterious email.
I actually read it out to my wife. She instantly recognised it as sounding very official and authentic as well, because the wording is done in a very sort of military way.
The email's anonymous author claimed they worked at the space agency and that Rosetta's scientific mission was a cover.
Do not think for one moment that the space agency would suddenly decide to spend billions of dollars to build and send a spacecraft on a 12-year journey to simply take close-up images of a randomly picked out comet floating through space.
The email alleged that the real aim of the probe was to carry out a military mission to make contact with aliens. It states that decades ago, a mysterious radio signal had been received from the distant comet 67P.
My understanding of it is that one of our deep space satellites or probes may have picked up this signal as far back as 20 years ago.
Conspiracists believe the signal is a message from intelligent extraterrestrials.
This signal is actually musical and contains some sort of intelligent structure which could possibly be decoded. This mission was never really about just randomly landing on a comet 350 million miles away. It was actually and is a military reconnaissance mission.
Conspiracists claim that Rosetta is designed to rendezvous with the aliens who sent the signal. Joe believes the final conclusive evidence is hidden in plain sight in the photographs Rosetta is now beaming back to Earth.
It's a large rock, it's 4.5 kilometers long, and it has what seem to be structures on it that look intelligently made. And there's even a UFO hovering just above the surface with a shadow underneath it, about the size of a family car. There's a tower also, which looks like a communications tower. In fact, it looks very much like a lighthouse. It sticks straight up like this. I think that ESA know exactly what this is, and this is exactly why we went there in the first place. And I think that the email stating as such is bang on the money, because everything that person said in the email has turned out to be true.
But many skeptics challenge even the basic premises of this conspiracy.
If you look at the conspiracy theory version of this, what they're saying is that the entire mission has been put together over a 20-year period to investigate this one comet, and it's simply not true. It was actually supposed to investigate a completely different comet.
Until its original launch was delayed, the Rosetta mission was destined for Comet 46P. Comet 67P was the backup option. And skeptics say the argument that Rosetta was much too expensive to be a simple science mission is just not true.
A lot is made about the expense of this mission. It was £1 billion mission. £1 billion is nothing, essentially, in the budgets of these types of missions. It's the cost of 4 jumbo jets. If you look at it from that point of view, this is not a very exotic or well-funded mission.
The scientists also have a rational explanation for the radio signal. It was recorded very recently by Rosetta's Philae probe on its approach and was created by the comet's own fluctuating electromagnetic fields. That still leaves the buildings on the surface, but the skeptics are not convinced.
There is a psychological phenomenon called pareidolia, where a human being looks at a random pattern, whatever it is, dots, smudges, whatever, and you see patterns in that, because we are all programmed to find patterns in randomness. And people are looking at landscapes, and because they believe in aliens and they believe in UFOs, and they're seeing random objects as alien faces and flying saucers and evidence of technology, etc. It's pareidolia. That's what it is.
So, should we believe in the existence of alien contact? Is there any evidence to back up the idea that there is a global conspiracy to keep the truth hidden? Or is there another explanation for the grip of this idea on the popular conscience? Psychologists believe alien cover-up conspiracies exist because they tap into a deep human need.
The universe is such a very, very, very large place that it is entirely possible for intelligences to exist elsewhere and even be high technology intelligences, but the vast spaces that separate us leave us to be marooned from each other, if not permanently marooned. That is very difficult for a lot of people to accept. So therefore they have to believe that contact is not just possible, it must have happened. And if it must have happened, there must be a cover-up. And again, you see the inevitable logical steps in conspiracy thinking.
It was angels hundreds of years ago, it's aliens now, another few hundred years it'll be something else. People want to think there are creatures out there that are intelligent, that are interested in us, that want to stop us from destroying ourselves with atomic weapons, and nothing I can say will convince them otherwise, and people will constantly look for evidence of those things and find it.
Believers are not dissuaded by these arguments. For them, the search for truth continues.
I can't imagine anybody in the government wanting to admit, oh, by the way, we haven't been telling you the truth for all these years. We have the government lying really from day one. They lied about it and got away with it.
Whether the ESA agree to mention this to the public or not is up to them. But if they don't do something fairly soon, they're going to look increasingly more out of touch with what researchers are finding and what the public are seeing.
The volume of evidence that has been gathered from all continents of this planet is simply overwhelming. I honestly believe I wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't believe we are dealing with a real, honest-to-goodness phenomenon.
Wherever sightings remain unexplained, anything is possible. There's always the chance that maybe, just maybe, there is someone out there.
Over on 5USA next tonight, the acclaimed and suspenseful drama Secrets and Lies continues, and the hunt is on for a horrific killer. Next year on Channel 5, a brand new 20 moments that rocked talent shows.